Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host Matt Goddard. Matt, how are you today?
I'm great. It's 2.5 weeks to Christmas, Malcolm. You all set?
I think set would probably be overstating it a little bit. I have opened my advent calendar this morning. I have a little drumstick for those watching on YouTube, not like a chicken drumstick, an actual sweetie drumstick. And what about you, Matt? You got all the presents, all the joie de vivre that comes with Christmas?
No, I've just been loving the content that's been coming in for both property and AI, so my focus has been truly on that. But I'm sure a last-minute trip to Battersea Power Station will solve those problems.
Yeah, the way to bring the whole kind of festive vibe down, man. I mean, I know we're excited, and no doubt the audience is also excited. But there is loads to go at, right? There is so much this week compared to what has been a little bit thin on the ground over the last couple of weeks. So let's us, without any further ado, get stuck into our property news. Right, first up, Zoopla has done some fun stuff with its Zoopla Wrapped kind of concept, where basically it just summarizes the previous year, and it's got some pretty good headlines and also some fun stuff to go as well. So the kind of headline numbers are property market on track to do 1.15 million sales completions this year. I think the long-term average is 1.2, so not too bad, bearing in mind kind of the last 6 months or so was pretty clogged up because of the budget. So that's pretty good. They think that there's going to be a bit of a bounce in January because of the kind of Boxing Day bounce. 26th of December is going to move into early next year. So positive stuff there. There's a whole lot of other stuff around the fastest moving markets in the UK. And unsurprisingly, all of the top 10 are in Scotland because their system works. Whereas in England and Wales, it's at least 10 days longer. So Falkirk is the fastest with 13, and Sunderland is the fastest in England and Wales with 23. Matt, did you take anything in particular away from this data festival?
I think it's always good when you get these summaries, isn't it? And I thought maybe we should be doing one before the end of the year, Mal, for certainly the AI news, probably not the property news, but just to look at what had gone on over the last few years. But I think bits for me that were quite interesting was garage and annex becoming popular search terms in 25, replacing freehold as last year's front runner, and also probably quite consistent 3-bed terraced house properties being the most popular property types. But certainly interesting to look back over it all and get that quite festive review of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting, the keywords, because obviously I spend a lot of time very boringly looking at kind of search
Do you?
terms. People search really too much. And yeah, like there was one random one. So the 10th one that's there is called deposit unlock. So they're apparently the 10th most popular search is for something called deposit unlock. Now, they're two very good words. I know that there are various schemes and things around that kind of do that, but yeah, just that just kind of struck me as being a little bit weird, really. But also, it was talking about what the most popular property is that they have seen accessed on their site. And it's a random kind of standard property, but over in Wales, on I believe the west coast of Wales, that essentially is absolutely beautiful with its kind of surroundings and stuff like that. And it was just interesting that it's not one of these big kind of bling footballers' houses somewhere in Merseyside or Cheshire, but actually it's just this little out in Wales.
Is that Pencarda? Is that how you pronounce it? Have I just absolutely obliterated some Welsh pronunciation?
I think the entire of Wales is now switched off.
Just the Moneypenny HQ.
Horrified. But yeah, so I just think it's quite sweet because actually, instead of all this kind of blue stuff, I think that the second most popular property is absolutely footballers.
Or painted purple throughout.
Yes. All of the Zoopla guys just basically got on it. So yeah, listen, it's all good fun. It's good to see just something that's a little bit kind of a little bit sideways. Look at the industry and what's kind of been working and things like that. So yeah, well done to Zoopla on that. We have some big news about a new celebratory day in the year from the I Am Property crew. So on the 26th of February, note it down, people, it is going to be a new awareness day for estate agents. Okay, launched by I Am Property, heavily pushed, and rightly so. Right, National Estate Agent Day is happening in 2026. Matt, what's your take?
Ben and Jamie have always come up with some cracking campaigns, haven't they, to make awareness of their business, and the behemoth that they've created over the last decade is really quite testament to that. Starting obviously off as I Am Sold and focusing on auctions right the way through to getting their LDC back in and being acquiring VTUK, the CRM, which is sort of foundational within, I think, of I Am Properties, the CRM, and I Am Sold as still the online auction business. But it's quite a canny way of getting the attention of the agency, isn't it? And so I'm sure there'll be a lot of people doing things in the high street windows to commemorate this.
Yeah, honestly, I just think it's brilliant. And well done there. I think I love just ideas that are just so out there. And it's like, of all the, again, we all know, although we try not to focus on it too much, that in terms of professions that are well regarded and things like that, then estate agency in general tends to come somewhere with politicians, journalists, and lawyers. But it is. I think this is great. I can't wait to see what happens and see how well it takes off and see all the brickbats that are going to come from people who moaning about it. But yeah, I think it's just a superb initiative.
What are you going to do, Mal, to commemorate it? In my head, because it's nearly Christmas jumper day this Thursday coming, is it a jumper with houses on, or have you already
something like this, which people cannot see,
but for estate agents?
But yeah, exactly. So I'm going to dress up like an estate agent. For those that are listening, I have just put there's a Santa hat which has a beard attached to it. And so I'm hoping that there's an estate agent version of this with, I don't know, the tie and iPad. But anyway, yes, I'm definitely dressing up because that's very important. So I think, I'm going to just walk around the whole day dressed up as an estate agent. And that's going to be my thing. So yes, I hope everybody else will join in, and looking forward to that day very much. So well done, everybody. News from businesses out there. So Yopa has given its annual report. Verona Frankish there has done another amazing job this year. Everything is on its way up, and I think the kind of the launch of the associates structure where people can be kind of self-employed within Yopa. What I love about Yopa is it doesn't, it's a part of the market that is just totally what it is. You can argue that the likes of Purple Bricks and others, as they kind of came through, were far too aggressive, far too kind of like trying to kind of just almost blow everybody else. Yeah, and I just think that Yopa has basically just said, look, this is what we are, this is what we do. If you want what that they would call value-based, cost-effective marketing for your property, then here we are. If you want something a bit more kind of high spec, blah blah, then there's others that can fulfill that. But yeah, I just think it's just a great example of marketing done right, knowing your mission and your vision, executing really well on that. And I think Verona and her team have done a sensational job there. What do you think?
Very much that. I think the term I'd want to use, and without causing offence, is it's a steady hand on the tiller, isn't it, from Verona? And she's well liked, runs an effective ship there, and I see Yopa boards up, or Yopa. I always get pronunciation wrong, and they've never been combative, have they? And I think was it Savills took an early stake in them, and they were well back from that point of view, and they did have some quite interesting advertising campaigns. But they had the Village People in one of their early campaigns as well, so they got that visibility, but without sort of going in aggressively to the rest of the market.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really, really effective way of going about it, and perhaps you can see what Purple Bricks might have been if they hadn't been quite so quite thrown stuff around quite so much, and then ended up selling for £1. So that's Yopa. Good news for them. We've also got some more news about Rightmove, and we're leaving this to the end of the property news just because we've been speaking about Rightmove quite a bit over the last few weeks. But again, that they are in the crosshairs of a particular investor. This particular investor called IFP has taken I think it's 5.8% share in the business worth 250 million quid, which is punchy. And they're known as an activist investor, which essentially means that they are quite happy to shake the tree to try and get things changed within businesses. They're also known as being very affiliated with Rupert Murdoch's.
Is that allegedly, Mal? Allegedly affiliated or definitely confirmed?
They are allegedly. Thank you.
Was that air quotes you just took your fingers?
Legal department, yes. Very important.
See, I'm learning. It's only taken nearly a year.
See that. What is it? The student has become the master, or whatever the phrase is. Thank you.
I am now Mr. Miyagi.
There is that affiliation with News Group. Yes, but interestingly as well, obviously there's an REA Group association with News Group, allegedly. No, not allegedly, because that's actually true. Anyway, now that we've done.
Yeah.
So what it could look like if you were taking an interested view on this is these investors are basically come in, they're going to rock the boat a little bit. REA Group made a £6.4 billion bid for Rightmove a year and a bit ago. Rightmove dropped down to 3.99 billion last week. So, way lower than where it was. So it's just going to be interesting because it does feel like, if they made a bid at 6.4, then the fact that the business Rightmove is now worth less than 4 billion, I wouldn't be surprised at all if REA Group came back in. Anything from you, Matt, or are you keeping stum because you know?
Well, I've already caused enough pain in this article.
All right, so that is the end of our property news this week. We are going to go on to our AI and tech news, which Matt is going to talk all the way through. So we're going to start with OpenAI. So OpenAI, their CEO, has declared a code red. Now, those two words together very much call back to about 3 years ago when Google observed that OpenAI had launched ChatGPT, and suddenly this consumer product was getting some amazing press, and actually they'd kind of blindsided Google, because Google's had this technology for quite some time, but they've been too scared to kind of release it. So Google called a code red then and has basically been trying to catch up ever since. It now appears that they have perhaps overtaken OpenAI and ChatGPT with their latest Gemini 3 model. Again, go back over the last couple of weeks if you want to hear more about that. And so now OpenAI and ChatGPT themselves have called a code red, and this is trouble for them, right?
It is. It just sparks that point. So, as you say, 3 years ago when Google suddenly called their code red, it's because they'd been quite lethargic in terms of, or reticent to launch their services to the market. And then ChatGPT suddenly burst onto the scene, and it was a code red situation for them. And now OpenAI, they're having to call the code red because even though they've launched their new models, Gemini has seen 200 million new users in 3 months, and it's starting to replace ChatGPT as almost the go-to, isn't it? In terms of the AI models. And there's more still coming out of Google as well, and we'll come on to that later on in the show notes. But it's not just calling the code red. Basically, the ChatGPT are stripping back everything that they've done over the last year. And there's been some quite cool announcements, haven't there? Maybe that's our Spotify Wrapped going through the announcements, because I know we do sort of batter our way through them, and you can choose your favourite one, and then I'll discount it and say which one mine is. But it's
Gemini Pro.
it's so the app player that sort of OpenAI have moved on to, and adding the agent mode and all these other things, and now they're saying actually we're going to strip everything back and just focus on our foundational models, and it could be obviously a cause for concern with them. And actually one of the other stories we've got in the show notes about Anthropic preparing for IPO and how they're actually potentially going to launch at a more higher value than ChatGPT and OpenAI because of the revenue they're actually bringing in per user. It's all different strands here that is sort of causing it, but for Sam Altman he did it via Slack initially, and he wrote it in a way that sort of shows it's going to get leaked, and it got leaked. So it'd be interesting. Obviously, it's great news for the OpenAI team just before Christmas and post-Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas present for them.
Yeah, they're going to be in their little tents in the office over Christmas, 100%. But yeah, no, I, like you, I think it's just interesting to see how these almost they're spidering off into different areas. So one of Google's big benefits is obviously its distribution network, because many businesses use Google Workspace. People use Google Chrome. So there are so many different ways that they have that they are able to drop this technology into your standard workflow. And you were talking last week about this is just how well they executed on the launch of Gemini 3 Pro was just how it dropped into everybody's kind of workflows all at the same time, and it's now just part of how a lot of people work. And I do think that's a real problem for OpenAI, because they don't have that distribution network. They don't have the massive flow of revenues that Google has got from its advertising, which remains such a huge kind of cash generator. So I think that they've they've got to pause and they've got to really think about what they're going to be. And I think, again, we've spoken before about the kind of CEO of Instacart coming along and kind of focusing much more on consumer products. And I would expect that to continue, where they are trying to basically wrap us all up as consumer products and services, so that essentially we just kind of keep using them and they get all sticky and things like that. Whereas perhaps Google just goes off and kind of keeps pushing the boundaries of what the tech can do, whereas OpenAI just kind of keeps finding things that consumers will use it for, I would suspect. But yes, as you say, Anthropic as well, to move on to the next story, is looking at one of the largest IPOs ever in its race with OpenAI. Again, regular listeners will know that Anthropic was set up by ex-OpenAI employees who were worried about OpenAI's stance on safety. So Anthropic has always kind of had a bit more of a safety kind of angle, safety vibe to it. But yes, it's now going all out. There has been a lot of talk about them kind of being ripe for being taken over. Would Apple buy them to kind of plug their gap in models? But if they go all out on this, they become a really, really, really significant, even more significant player than they are already, right?
That's it. And me alongside a point I was thinking about, where there was 2-3 weeks ago talk of the Anthropic and Apple integrations of bringing Anthropic into Siri alongside Google. So obviously that was something that Google was being readily tested, and whether that points to positioning around the point you just made about Apple. But that 350 billion sort of range, with investments up to 5 billion from Microsoft and 10 billion from Nvidia, is pretty punchy. And it's the point I was listening to earlier in the week was that it was around the fact that they're actually getting more revenue per user. So it'll be very interesting to see what this does. And it won't be until late 2026, 27. And they've, of course, said they're not preparing for an IPO, which normally means they definitely are.
100%. Allegedly.
Like model prop.
Is that allegedly? Anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think that this, just again, kind of speaks to the gold rush that's kind of happening right now. That there is this kind of sense that it's almost one company to win them all. And if you can be kind of top of the pile when the music stops, when the one share is left, then you've got a chance of basically dominating essentially intelligence in perpetuity. So it's there's a lot to play for, and all of these guys are moving very, very fast to try and secure their place in it. All right. Next up, we are going to dip back into Gemini 3 because I just like talking about it. No, actually, this is DeepThink. So Google has released its even more thinking model, where basically you can set it to think even harder about those problems. And guess what? It's amazing. So I've been using it quite a bit on some project work that I've been doing. And it goes away, it thinks very, very hard, and it comes back with some stuff that's just like off the scale. So some of you may have seen my LinkedIn post this week about the share prices of all of the major property portals across the world. And almost all of them are dropping by double digits, or have done in the last 6 months. All of that analysis, in terms of going and fetching the numbers, bringing it back, making a table, making a nice graph, all that sort of stuff, done by Google DeepThink, right? It was just off the scale, straightforward. Checked a couple of things. There was one thing that they got wrong about kind of the Zillow one, which was high. But yeah, it was phenomenal, and it was really, really quick. There was a time when I pushed it on a few things. I then asked it to do an analysis of actually, now can you look at the classifieds market in the UK that isn't property, so Rightmove versus Auto Trader versus Money Supermarket, various others, and it just kept refusing to do that. We said, I can't do that, but don't worry, we haven't taken any of your time. Like, I still want you to do it. So I just did the normal deep thinking for that, which I'll put out sometime this week. But it's phenomenal. So analysis of your markets, analysis of how you increase your stock by 10% next year. Go have a look at this because it's phenomenal.
Well, it's something I've previously used Manus for, but the thing that struck me is this has got unilateral deep thinking stuff. So you've sort of almost got that multiverse, to use the Marvel term, of agents that are going off and doing all the thinking, then collating it back together, right? And so just taking that next step on that journey of it's not just a research scientist, it's a pool of research scientists you're using.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, phenomenal and well worth a look. All right, next in our AI and tech news, we want to just touch on Amazon has been getting a bit noisy, isn't it, this week? It's got some new stuff coming out. There's Fire TV, the kind of most eye-catching one, which is obviously not the thing that's the most important thing, because there's loads and loads of tech stuff, training chips, all that sort of stuff, agentic AI. But the thing that caught everybody's attention was, with your Amazon Fire TV, you can actually get it to let you jump to scenes where you vaguely remember some of the quotes, or what's happening in the scene, and it will actually try and find that particular scene for you, right, Matt?
Yes, I'm pleased you picked out that one and said it was, because for reInvent with me, it was the launch of these Nova large language models, which I know you're scowling at me or raising your eyes, but it's been a year, hasn't it, since they've done anything on this front. So I can see, for example, with the Fire TV describing it, although to be fair, I struggle to get it to understand my accent now. So if I'm trying to describe a scene in a particular film I've watched recently that made the people in the house laugh, is it going to understand me, or is it just going to say, cannot find that, in the same way it does when I ask to watch The Accountant 2 or whatever film we're looking for?
Mamma Mia.
Yeah, Mamma Mia 3 is that one. But from reInvent 2025, to bring it back to sort of it's not trivial, is it? Because if sometimes if you're watching a podcast and you're up to a certain point in time, it's easier to do that than press fast forward and find that it skips you 10 minutes instead of the 30 seconds. But the Nova large language models, I think Amazon's, because of AWS's huge base, having those available for the first time in a year, and people being able to actually take these and build out their own large language models from them. So open source, and I think they've called them novellas. So yeah, pun intended on that one. But it's quite interesting to see if they can gain back some of that market from the likes of Google and Google and Microsoft, or whether or not people have already moved off and building their large language models already through this.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it is interesting because they are obviously a consumer as well as a sort of enterprise business with AWS and so on. Another move they've made in the last couple of weeks is they've banned, well, particularly I think it was Perplexity, wasn't it, from trying to kind of access their shopping. And we covered that, I think, last week or the week before. So that they are getting quite aggressive in terms of kind of elbows out, trying to protect what they have built. So if you want to shop on Amazon, you cannot use an OpenAI ChatGPT. You cannot use Google Gemini. You have to use the internal Amazon one, and that's because they want all the data about what your shopping experience is and all that sort of stuff, and don't want that to leak out. And also doesn't want ChatGPT to point you to something that isn't Amazon. So yeah, I think it's it's big moves. I think that these guys have kind of been a bit behind the eight ball for a little while, but it's going to be interesting to see how aggressively they come at the market, because it seems like they're starting to make some quite big moves.
I think the last one we should have covered really in the OpenAI summary was AI model Garlic, which has been getting tested, which sounds like it is the ChatGPT 5.2 or 5.5 that they may even be releasing today. We're recording on Tuesday to sort of counteract this Gemini 3, but the concern with this is always, if they're racing something out the door, we're going to see similar issues to those that we saw before with OpenAI's models coming out and them not preparing for the challenges that they create.
Yeah, Gemini 3 had been sort of trailed for quite some time, but I think it still took almost everybody by surprise with just how good it was. So yeah, so following on from this code red, as you say, that there is a lot of whisperings that OpenAI are going to make a move, and that move is going to be that this Operation Codename Garlic, which is going to be 5.2 or 5.5. ChatGPT 5.2 or ChatGPT 5.5 is going to come along. But yeah, again, like you say, if it's kind of feels like it's a defensive move rather than an offensive move, and you just kind of don't think that necessarily it's going to smash it. It's interesting just to think about the contrast with last year. So in last year December, basically OpenAI and Sam Altman were releasing one new product every 12 days of shipments, wasn't it? And so they were that confident. They just had product after product after product, and they were just kind of slapping Google's face every single day with something new. And now it's a very kind of different picture out there for sure. We've got some more about Perplexity just quickly. They're being sued.
Yes, your point just reminded me about it with Amazon. So this is one where the Chicago Tribune and New York Times are suing Perplexity over the copyright, and it's a case of they've been using this as a way of accessing behind the paywall paywall rather, information from both the New York Times and Chicago Tribune, and it's an interesting one because I think there's a few legal spats going on around copyrighted content and access to it, and who's copying it and distributing it. And some of the perplexity points in this particular one have been found to they're basically just taking the articles verbatim and passing them on without paying for it. And so I think the reason this is an interesting one and one we'll continue to watch is it's a case of with all these lawsuits stacking up, the first domino to fall is probably going to set the precedent, and then we'll see that being used. So whether it's the New York Times or whether it's the Chicago Tribune, it'll dictate, I think, not just Perplexity, but OpenAI is also getting sued by the likes of Microsoft, and have also been sued. There's a few cases out there that I think we should continue to watch.
Yeah, it is interesting. So like you said, there's been a few kind of ones that have gone through already. So Claude paid out to loads of authors when they agreed that they'd legally use their books. On the kind of the music side, Suno and Udio both have had to make agreements with the likes of Warner Bros. And Universal Music, and to agree and commit that nothing would then come out of their models that was not kind of licensed and all that sort of stuff, and then they pay a fee to the artists too. So it does feel like there's kind of a bit of quite a lot of pushback hitting all of these different frontier labs, and I do think Perplexity does kind of stand a bit on its own because it has been very, very aggressive, very punchy, and it has used things allegedly that it shouldn't have done. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, we're way over time. Told you this was going to be a packed episode. We're going to go very quickly into our tool of the week. All right, we love video and we love what's happening in AI generated video. So this is Runway Gen 4.5, and it's just got so much to it in terms of text to video, images to video. So you can just put like little images in and then say, right, can you run on this scene with this particular feature? You can have what they call ingredients, which essentially you can put in like, I don't know, a cheese grater. I don't know why I said that. And a Santa hat and some other stuff, and say, we want this all to interact in this particular way, and it will do it. So yeah, look, we've been playing around here at Modelpop with a lot of AI video. And I just think it's exploding so much, and is going to be so good for a lot of businesses out there that perhaps haven't had the budgets to be able to create those brand ads, particularly because this allows you to really, really express yourselves.
That's it. And some of your videos that you posted on LinkedIn, really well. Even your launch for Model Prop was really well generated, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell. And we talked a few weeks about the Coca-Cola Christmas ads and the noise that had caused. So the fact there's another release from Runway and it's pushing that frontier model, it's just a reminder of as a tool of the week to go out, have a look at this, and think about what you could. Maybe you haven't done your Christmas video yet. Maybe you've want some content for your social media that's slightly longer than the sort of 3 to 5 seconds it demands, and this gives you a chance to produce that. And I think that ingredients feature you mentioned, minus the cheese grater, is probably quite an interesting one for the Christmas vid.
You're right. The cheese grater was ill-judged.
Is it because you got a cheese grater behind your monitor?
I never stop snacking on cheese. It's just
we should move on.
Right. We are going to go finally to our weird AI of the week, which is not taking it up very far in terms of quality and conversation. But big news for those of you who have invested in an end-to-end encrypted smart toilet camera. It's not actually end-to-end encrypted. All right. This is bad news for those that are, hoping that all of their toilet habits are being kept secret. So this is Kohler, Kohler. Earlier on this year, they launched a smart camera called the Decoder. Attaches to your toilet bowl, takes pictures of it, and analyzes the images to advise you on your gut health. So there is a reason for this. But yeah, what it's done is it insisted that all of it was end-to-end encrypted, but now it turns out that actually they themselves can use their AIs to work through all of this stuff and basically build out better knowledge of their AI. Now, Matt, I don't know. Do you have any comment you'd like to make on this at all?
I think returning to the property side of our podcast, there's always question marks raised over people with internal cameras when they're doing viewings and valuations, and I think some people have it stipulated in the terms and conditions that they have to highlight these. Toilet camera in the bowl. I think that takes the question to a whole new level, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just? So yeah, so anybody out there, and I'm sure there are loads who have these things, just be careful, okay? All right, that is the end of our property AI report this week, number 56. Thank you for being with us and listening along. And Matt, thank you also for being there. Good to see you.
Likewise, I'll see you at the Relocation Agent Network conference on Thursday.
It's the big one. Yes, so this I think is the peak of the year, the last one. Certainly that I think most agents are attending. If you haven't got your ticket, then obviously that is tragic for you. But do please go and have a look. I think there might be a couple still around, and it would be good to catch up with everybody there. But yes, if we don't see you there, then we will catch up with you again next week on the Property AI report. Thank you very much indeed. See you then.
Take care, everyone.